Hi, I'm Brenda Such. Welcome to another episode of COIPcast, where we talk about new, trending, or just fascinating technologies, strategies, or topics in online education. The role of the educational technologist is often symbiotic with the role of an instructional designer. Joining us is educational technologist Megan Morich and instructional designer Rachel Seaman from the Center of Online Innovation and Production. Welcome, Megan and Rachel.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, sure. They're my colleagues too, so we're just really excited to work with each other and actually have a time to talk to each other too. So, Megan and Rachel, our show consists of 3 segments where we like to get to know your past and present experiences with education, especially related to online production of courses. Also, we'd like to know some future ideas of what you think your roles might be within online education. So, our first segment, Digital Origin Story, or DOS. Could you please share how you became involved in education and online education? And we'll start with Megan.
Sure. So when I was in college, I took a lot of online courses, and one of my professors actually mentioned that they worked with an instructional designer. So that's kind of one of the first moments that it was like really on my radar as a field. And then I had always wanted to work in education, just something I'm very interested in. Mm-hmm. So I really liked how the field combined education, helping people learn, with kind of some design aspects.
Mm-hmm. And Rachel?
So to keep it relatively short, when I graduated with my undergrad degree, my mom actually recommended I get my master's in education because she saw how much I liked teaching other employees at my student position. So once I went through that degree program and realized that online education was more what I wanted to do, because traditional in-classroom education wasn't really working out. But then we kind of entered more of a recession type of time. So it was hard for me to find a position. I went back to UF to get my graduate certificate in instructional design, and then found my way back to online education. Yes.
Knowing that background, we're going to transition. It was a short segment. Now we're going to start our second segment of Bits and Bytes, where we talk about tidbits or technical issues related to course production. So, what have been some of your responsibilities and your respective roles? AI and accessibility have been hot topics in our field, so anything related to those areas too. So this time around, we're going to start off with Rachel.
Okay.
So what's the role of an instructional designer to you? Because I also know the definition in the field can also be quite broad.
Definitely.
So what do you think?
Well, definitely, I feel like at COIP, the instructional designer role is one of a project manager and a content creator. I feel like specifically in my ID 3 role, I have also been tasked with more unique projects that don't really follow our typical course production timeline. So things that are extending into multiple semesters, things like the chemistry labs I've been working on this semester, where it's not quite the same as a traditional online course development. And I also get the great role of managing our ed techs here, which I found very valuable. And it's something I actually like to do in my student position also, is kind of serve in a mentorship role and a training role. It's been really rewarding to see Megan and other ed techs flourish in their role and really stand alone. They're no longer really my apprentices.
That's awesome. And then Megan, as an educational technologist, what's been your role, responsibilities? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so kind of like what Rachel said, she's more of like the project management side and also does a lot of the building. But for me, I'm kind of fully on the building side of things. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of like making PowerPoints, making Canvas pages, that type of thing. And then there are also other tasks that come up under that, but it is really on the production side.
Yeah. So those who aren't necessarily familiar with the production process, if someone was like, oh, someone is in the trenches, like meeting with the faculty, digging into curriculum, etc., like, which one of you would be more, I guess, considered in the trenches?
I feel like we're both in the trenches.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah, it's really the ID that's interfacing the most with the instructor. But recently, we've also been having ed techs that are assigned to a particular course joining those meetings to see how the professor interacts with us, kind of where the production schedule is going, just so that they can be better informed when they're building the content. For instance, Megan attended all of the meetings I had with a professor, Dr. Sean Weatherford, in fall. I feel like her being able to see his personality during meetings and kind of like his motivations really helped her to be as successful as she was building those magnificent PowerPoints, which at COIP, the PowerPoints become videos. So it's really important to make sure that the animations are working in tandem with whatever's on the slide to provide like a cohesive experience for students to actually learn. So it's not just slides. I know I say that all the time, but it's not just slides. It's really the video experience ultimately of what the students are getting.
Yeah, I've definitely found attending some of the meetings helpful since it's kind of less back and forth and you can directly meet with the professor, kind of see where they're coming from, what they're looking for in the PowerPoints, which I still get that when I'm working with instructional designers since they're really great at explaining what we need. But when you can see firsthand what the professor is like, it is definitely helpful to get a better feel for the course.
So I think the people listening may not, in some departments, people interchange instructional designer, educational technologist. Some may have two, some may only have instructional designers. I think the more curious position in our three roles may be the educational technologist. So in your, she's like, yeah, win, you win. Can you, for the audience, maybe define more of like, what is like your day-to-day, like when you're given this PowerPoint that is going to be a video, is it intimidating? Is it like what is the process of even interfacing with the materials you're getting?
Sure. So the instructional designers that I'm working with are the ones who really, like we said, meet with the professor. Then they give me kind of a good description of the task, what's required. And for our department, a lot of it comes through templates. So for PowerPoints, we have a course template designed by the awesome graphic design team. So we work from that.
Shout out graphic design team.
They're amazing. So we work from that, and it really helps to kind of keep that consistency. So that takes away some of the intimidation. Like you're not starting from scratch for a PowerPoint. You really have something to build off of. And then, so kind of my day-to-day process for something like a PowerPoint build, I look at the instructor's materials. Then I see how to kind of best visualize, reformat that, and make it fit the new course template and the new styling that we have.
So if you have questions, do you go to like someone like Rachel first, or I guess you never necessarily ask the instructor directly, or maybe you do.
It kind of depends on the type of question. Some of them are for the instructional designer, if it's like something specific to design, a question about the template, things that are needed or have been done already for the course. Then if it's something really specific to the material in this specific PowerPoint, I will often like leave a comment for the professor or like add it to the notes so the instructional designer can talk about it with the professor later on.
So you're like, I don't know what this means or what this picture is. Can you clarify, please?
Right. As sometimes as the ID, you can step in and say like, okay, I understand this content a little bit. I can help suss it out with you. Other times, if the ed tech's already joining the meetings, it's nice to give them the autonomy to talk to the professor and be like, I was building this and had this thought. What do you think? Yeah. Instead of having everything come through the IDs and maybe things get lost in translation that way.
And also it's just helpful since if I'm the one who built it, it will be helpful sometimes to explain like why I made the design decision. Which is a bit quicker if I can like directly explain that instead of having to go through. Yeah.
So when you all meet with an instructor, how do you introduce yourselves? You're like, we're the tag team that's going to help you. Like how does that introduction go?
So I think historically, it's just been I add them to the meeting. We both show up one day with the instructor. Usually,
there's two of you.
Yes,
got it.
Usually that happens after our when we've built out fully one module of the course in one PowerPoint, our milestone, and then we've built our templates. The ed techs have seen them, and then we can start assigning out work to the ed techs. So usually at that point is when I bring them into the meetings, and I say like, this is an ed tech who's going to be helping me make content for the course, they're going to be attending our weekly meetings. And then they usually just sit in. And I don't make them take notes or anything. I'm still the project manager. I'm taking notes, updating the production schedule. They're just there so that they can ask questions. They can hear the questions that I'm asking, and they have a general idea of what is going on in the course.
How does an educational technologist get their assignments? Like I'm thinking almost like a burger joint where, someone orders something, you got an order, and now you have like a row of tickets where now you're like, okay, this burger's first, this fry's next, but is it like that, or how do you get assigned? Is it tied to a course or a person?
Yes and no, both. So
always
right. So during like the milestone process of our, semesterly builds, Kelly McDonald, the assistant director of COIP, we sit down because she's kind of over the learning design team side. We sit down and kind of work out like what courses, based upon what she's seen from the instructors in the milestone, are going to need the most ed tech help, and we kind of divvy it out that way. So there is a spreadsheet that exists that has the ID's name, the course code, and then an ed tech slot next to it that is or is not filled with a particular name of one of the ed techs that we have. That is all well and good, and these are well set plans that we have. But then as the semester goes on, sometimes things change. Some courses go really well. Instructors turn in things on time. It moves really fast. And the ed tech isn't needed because the course closes out earlier, closes out on time. And then that ed tech is then free to take on kind of what I'm calling like random tasks that come in from courses that may have not had ed techs assigned to them, but the ID's plate is very full, and it's kind of more of like a tedious task that could really be done by an ed tech if they have time. So yes, there are IDs that know that they have ed techs assigned to them. So they, like Megan will build all the PowerPoints that need help building for a particular course, but she may also get a one-off task from another ID with a different course that just needs her to do like chaptering for a few videos or to make a few PDFs accessible. So there is I do like that there is a set relationship kind of in the beginning so that they know I'll be working with these IDs this term on these types of courses, but they may also get other tasks as well.
Now, what I'm about to ask, I'd like to frame it as the instructional designer role and the educational technologist role so that it's not saying the two of you personally.
Okay, we won't take it personally.
Don't take it personally. But for people in your individual roles, what challenges might people face? Like if, because it's both sides. So anyone who's developing these roles in their department, what challenges can they expect when they have people in these roles kind of working together? And it may not be like, just, again, nothing personal. It's not personality difference. Obviously, both of you get along great. But have you seen any kind of like challenges with the roles and when to you're dancing. So has there been you step on each other's toes sometimes?
I guess if it was establishing from the start, it would really be setting up those procedures. So since we already have very well established procedures and just making sure that it's clear where to go for the instructions, like what Rachel was saying with keeping the consistency, how to approach that. So having something like a template is really helpful for that. But I could see if you don't have that procedure established already, that could be tricky to not really have somewhere to go to make sure that everything is staying consistent. If you are kind of working in tandem from the start without having that established baseline, I could see how it could be harder.
So the templates and expectations.
Yeah, I think how we have it set up when we do our milestone, and just to define the milestone a little bit more, it is taking one kind of representative chunk of your course, whether that's a module, a unit, a lesson, and building it out in its entirety. So every single detail that you want on your Canvas page, every single detail that you want in your lecture is addressed in that milestone section of our course production. And we do that right away so that down the line, we don't realize, I really hate the color blue and everything is green. So we don't have to make those kind of retroactive edits that take a lot of time. And I think during that process, the IDs are kind of setting the tone and the template for the course in Canvas and PowerPoint. And without that, the ed techs wouldn't know what the feel of the course was going to be. So taking the time to do that initial setup is very valuable down the line. Something that I think Megan is really good at is communication as well. I think that is honestly number one, of making sure the IDs and the ed techs don't clash. You have to be very communicative. There needs to be a level of respect there so that if Megan comes to me with a question, I don't blow her off, or I say like, that's not a good question. Or didn't you see it's in the template slide, blah, 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 and then go off. So it's
Rachel's comments in the project management system.
Right.
Did you not see what I wrote here?
Right. Exactly. So just approaching it with communication, and the goal is to have a cohesive, excellent product for the student to have is the goal. And we're all working towards the same goal. So there's no point in fighting. We're all working towards the same goal. And I really think that giving accurate instructions, taking the time to set up those templates is all involved in that communication. So it's very clear, very explicit. There's no room for interpretation. And if there is, we're good to talk about it. There's an open door there. So I think that is the key component of making sure that we don't butt heads is communication and respect.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also to that point, since for our department, we always have the ID will review the work that I've done. So that really helps, especially at the beginning where maybe there's some details that are newer where I'm not exactly sure, or well, I would ask in that point, but I didn't know that something should
hopefully
be.
Hopefully they won't see that.
Yeah. So especially at the beginning of the course, I think having that thorough review and those really thorough comments is helpful, since then I can apply those when the same situation comes up later on in the course. But just having the instructional designer take that time to really look for the specifics, explain what needs to be done, or explain how to do something instead of just correcting it themselves, that can help make sure that later on in the course the same mistake doesn't keep coming up.
About the popular topics of AI and accessibility, what have you implemented in your work?
Yeah, so I think it's really helpful for kind of the, like Rachel was saying, a bit of the more repetitive type tasks, or just trying to maximize the efficiency with which we can do things. So I know it's some people in our department, and then I've adopted it as well. We've been using ChatGPT to help generate alt text or alternative text for images for accessibility purposes. And then we do, of course, check it and make sure it makes sense, edit it down, that kind of thing. But just to have it as a starting point for, sometimes it will be a complex image or a table where writing it by hand would take longer than just being able to generate that from the start.
That is very true. I remember that life. Yes.
So that kind of thing. And then sometimes for I've used it for image expansion in PowerPoints. So if an image isn't the right dimensions for our template, you can just kind of add a bit of a border so it fits better, instead of having to spend ages trying to find another image that would work in that place, or maybe that's the only one that is available. And it's also good for things I know a lot of the instructional designers use it to make rubrics, that type of thing. Just again, as a starting point where you can have somewhere to go and build up from.
With the AI generation, which tool do you use that with again?
For which?
I'm sorry, for image generation.
Oh, yes. So that's the built-in in Photoshop. And then a lot of the other ones are either done with ChatGPT or Copilot through UF.
Okay. Thank you. And then any AI accessibility tools you're using from either project management side, or, even though it sounds like the work is shared between an educational technologist, the instructional designer still has to do some of the similar things, because educational technologists seem to span people and projects, etc. But what do you, Rachel, use for AI or accessibility?
I am usually using AI to get instructors started when they have blank page syndrome. So if they're I don't know how to write an introduction for this module, I will have ChatGPT start one. I'll feed it the module topic and the objectives, have it write one. And most of the time the instructor's just relieved to see words that they can critique and edit over having to just create them themselves. So that's a lot of what I'm using it for. As far as accessibility goes, really generating alt text is so helpful. Even just to edit it, even if it's not exactly correct, is so much faster than trying to do it by hand. But those are really the main things I'm using it for at the moment.
Okay. And when you have these meetings with instructors, what kind of questions do you get? Whether it be on in those areas or any other area let's start off there, because I also want to hear like some interesting questions you all get too.
Well, regarding AI, most of the time it's just relief that something has been started that they hadn't started before. I haven't had anyone express too much concern because I am trying to use it in the most ethical way possible, and not put any sensitive data or any of their intellectual property out there. I just want to get them started on things that might scare them initially.
Okay. And again, those things that are scary are like a blank course map or course outline.
Yeah, I'm behind. I need to write a sentence, and I'm freaked out about writing the sentence. Sometimes it's even as much as that. I have had a couple of professors express that they want to use AI in their course, but they're not really sure how to incorporate it. And I have walked through that process with one or two professors who have wanted to add AI to like assignments, and how you have to kind of scaffold that and make sure that students are well supported and that you're being very explicit about how you want AI to be used, if not everywhere. So
they're like, we want to use it for everything.
Right. And you're like, pump the brakes just for these assignments.
How about you, Megan?
Well, I don't really meet with the professors directly as much. Like, I do attend the meetings, but usually it would be the instructional designer really kind of leading that type of conversation, since that's a bit more of the higher level if it's kind of like the course approach. But I've definitely like seen some interesting assignments that have come through that I'm excited to have more of those in the future.
Can we talk about this? Is it secret?
Spill the tea,
Yes,
Megan.
spill the tea. What kind of exciting assignments are you seeing?
I really think the assignments that kind of ask students to critique output from AI or deal with AI ethics are really an interesting application. I think it's just a good way to have students really think about where AI is going, how they could use it themselves. And it's a bit more like in depth than just using it one off as a tool and then not really thinking about the implications again.
That's cool. Now, I would like to transition then. I think this is good to set up our third segment, which is Tech Forward, which is thinking about what we just talked about, your roles as instructional designer, educational technologist. What would you all like to see the next steps be? Whether it be new technologies, new strategies, maybe even a new role that would join kind of like your team, like there's a third role that would make both of our lives easier. I don't know. What do you think would be some of the future things?
But I do think division of responsibility like that. So an ID doesn't have to be everything to everyone, which is kind of how it is right now, where we're the project manager. We're also doing content creation. We're also executing the course. We're reviewing the course. If we could split some of that responsibility off onto an ed tech so that they don't have to worry about managing the instructor and doing project management, they could solely focus on content creation, which is kind of what they're doing now, but maybe to a lesser extent. I think that would be helpful.
Just in terms of tools that are coming out, I think it's always developing, so it's a little hard to say like what exactly it will look like in the future. But I think just from what we've seen, probably some more like things that will integrate into the platforms we're already using. So maybe some more options in things like Canvas, where like I know some people are implementing like an AI assistant type thing, where it will just kind of like build onto what we have, but have more diverse options for students, different pathways, maybe some more personalization in the courses as well, where students can kind of have different learning paths.
We talked a lot about PowerPoints, but you just talked about Canvas as well. What is that relationship like between the two of you in building those out? Canvas pages. Those who aren't familiar with Canvas pages, let me take some steps back. So at the University of Florida, we use the learning management system Canvas. Some of y'all listening might be using Blackboard, maybe Moodle, some of the other learning management systems out there. Of course, Rachel and Megan are tag teaming in what the instructors give them, not only for PowerPoints, but even to put into these learning management systems where the students interface. So in addition to creating the multimedia, you all are also creating this digital experience for students in Canvas. What is that like together?
It's honestly pretty similar to how we approach PowerPoint, where we also work from templates from the graphic design team and then build from those. And we also have like the instructor will send us their outline. So we pull in the information, make sure everything is like organized in the correct sections. It's again like making sure that there's that consistency. So when a student opens a module, they know where to look, where to go for the assignments, and it's not kind of like always having to search for what they need. It's just laid out in a way that makes sense. So I think that's kind of the main focus with Canvas, is making sure everything is where it needs to be. Consistent design.
Yeah, I just want to double down on the consistency, because you mentioned that with PowerPoint too. The EdTech's role here really is to create a seamless product. So like if I'm building 2 PowerPoints in a particular module and then Megan builds 2 PowerPoints in a particular module, I don't want the instructor or the student to know that 2 different people built them. They need to look the same and feel the same. So EdTechs really do like step into kind of like that chameleon role, where they're, you know, forming their output to whatever the course and ID needs are.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Megan, for your time. I mean, I work with these people, but I don't necessarily get to have conversations like this. So I really appreciated being able to talk to you all and hear your experiences. Thank you for those watching and listening. And until next time.